You're listening to the UnCommonCore podcast with your host Thomas Howell. Today's episode, Profiling.
When I was about 5 or 6, I remember being in a big place, a convention hall or something like that. There were many kiosks or booths. I was with my mom and grandmother. We stopped and my mom started talking to some guy at one of these booths. After a time, I gathered that they were talking about me, my education, my future, and all of a sudden, they turned their attention in my direction. So the guy asked, "What are you going to be? What are you going to do?" He didn't seem sincere, so I didn't answer right away. But he persisted. "Are you working toward your future? Do you have a plan?" I thought carefully. I told him that I was good in school and that I tried to be good. And I didn't say this to please him or my parents. I was being honest. I didn't really think it mattered anyway. The only time I remembered my mom checking my homework was when I learned to write letters into the alphabet. She said it was important to keep the letters between the lines and make the curved hump in the H reach halfway to the dotted line in the middle. One day that dotted line would disappear. The man at the booth faced me and asked if I thought I should prepare myself for the future now or if I should enjoy my life, live for today. He asked if I should play or study. I was a shy kid and didn't really have any friends, except for a kid who lived across the field behind our house. I would go over there and watch the monkeys, the TV show. If I remember correctly, he played the drums, or banged on them. I learned later he was retarded, and my mother and grandmother had a conversation about whether or not it was good for me to be hanging out with him. Shortly after that, I played alone in the backyard. "Yes, I want to study," I said. "I want to do well," I told the man at the kiosk. He seemed impressed. My grandmother laughed. My mom was somewhat dismissive. The man said I was very unusual and that most kids my age only thought of today, and according to him, I was a smart kid. He was such an asshole, but his question plagued me. I didn't like the profile he made of me, the smart kid, the good kid. I began to challenge the person I was, the priorities I had. I was naturally nice. I intuitively understood that delayed gratification was good. But was it really? Really? That was a long time ago. Later in San Francisco, I had a friend, Casey. He was a kind of a street kid. He once asked, "How do you know you're supposed to be who you're supposed to be?"
Hello, what's going on? I'm Tom Howell, and I'm sitting here on the beach, or on a beach in Maui, about 3 yards from the edge of the ocean, under a tree. And there are people walking by, and there are people snorkeling, I guess, snorkeling by, and there's boats and airplanes going by as well sometimes. And as they pass by, they're looking at me like I'm some kind of freak. Anyway, this is my first initial podcast. Yes, hello. And it is a nice blue day after a rough New York winter. I have this first podcast from recordings I made in New York City with a class. And the initial idea to make a podcast came about with my interactions I was having in class. I thought they were kind of unique, and that some other students, people might be interested in listening to them. And I also had a lot of experiences from kind of strange jobs I've had and traveling, things I've done, stuff like that. As soon as I started recording, I get all these people walking by. I don't know. I was like nobody, hardly. Initially, there's nobody here. Anyway, so I recorded a few classes. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to go about it. I didn't plan on using the recordings because they were just basically from my iPhone. And after listening to them, even though the quality wasn't very good, I thought they were authentic. And so in these first few episodes or so, I think I'm going to use them. And this first episode, recording is from a class which was on September 29th, 2013, which is basically my oldest recording. And we were reading that day information off of a voter information ballot. Oops, shit. Okay, that wave was pretty close. I'm only sitting about, I don't know, like yards, 1, 2, 3 yards from the water. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, voter information ballot. That's what we were reading in class. And the class had an internet hookup, so occasionally I play some video, so you will hear those. It's a little girl walking by in a long blue t-shirt and a long necklace of seashells and a little gray hat. And she's picking up seashells. It's a family beach.
Okay, so let me see. 1, 2, 3, up to 3 count. 4, 5, 10. That's the 10 in the Democratic Party. And then let's see. 1, 2, 3 in the Republican Party. So that's 13. One in the Independent Party. That's it. So 14, I guess, total. 14 different mayors. And, you have to meet you have to have a certain number of people on a petition to get on the ballot usually. And then they get what they call matching funds. You have to meet other qualifications, and they research you. And like John Liu, the comptroller, ironically didn't pass, I've talked about that before, he didn't get the matching funds. But you could still run. So anybody could run. They used to have crazy people run for mayor in San Francisco. They'd have 2 or 3, just crazy people. Like here every now and then they will too. Go ahead and read de Blasio.
Party enrolled Democratic, current director to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, 82 Mayor Dinkins.
Mayor Dinkins? Who's Mayor Dinkins? Wasn't he like the mayor of Oz or something like that? The Munchkins? Mayor Dinkins, he had like a green bowler hat. Yeah. He was in charge of the Oompa Loompas or something. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Keep going. Number 1.
What is the most important issue in the city? To tackle economic inequality, we must strengthen our education system, expand and protect affordable housing, and create strong jobs across all 5 boroughs. I'm the only candidate who has a plan to create universal early education and after-school programs by asking the wealthiest to pay a little bit more in taxes.
You kind of have to know what that means. They're vague, because they don't have that much space. And it's kind of the way you write sometimes. People that don't know the issues might not know what they mean. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Go ahead and read number 2.
What other important issues would you address if elected? I understand how fragile police community relations can put both residents and officers at risk, and I have called for true reform of stop and frisk and strong legislation to ban racial profiling.
Racial
Profiling. I also believe that immigrants have always been an essential part of our city, and the next administration must embrace and support our vital immigrant communities. What makes you the best candidate for this office? I have dedicated my career to taking on the elite and powerful.
He does go specific. Call for true reform of stop and frisk and strong legislation to ban racial profiling. What do you guys think about the stop and frisk and racial profiling thing?
In 2013, stop and frisk was a big issue in the election. Stop and frisk refers to when a police officer stops you and makes you empty your pockets and checks or frisks you to see if you're carrying or doing anything illegal. In November of 2013, Bill de Blasio was elected and appointed a new police commissioner, Bill Bratton, from Los Angeles. But stop and frisk continued. When asked about stop and frisk, the students believe the police officer only stopped certain people because of their race.
Because they're black? That's why they stopped me. I was stopped like 4 times. Yeah. Huh? I was stopped
In Manhattan over by Bowery, Lower East Side. Yeah.
What do they do at this stuff? They ask you for an ID and.
Yeah. They say, empty your pockets. Let me look in your bag.
I think two of the three times I had my bag with me.
It was a while back.
They run checks on you. They take your ID. They give you some. They're a little smartass to you. They can't get by without saying some wise crack.
I guess they have to amuse themselves somehow.
But the problem is, you can't wise crack back. So it's a little unfair and annoying. But, and it is. The whole thing is annoying. But it's not that bad to me, of course. But I was only stopped a few times. I mean, they ran my check. They said, "Oh, you got a California driver's license, huh?"
And I'm like, yeah. Well, where are you living? I keep thinking, give them a fake address. Tell them you're here visiting, But I didn't. I gave them my real address. I don't think it would have mattered. I mean, really. How would they know?
But I gave them my real address, and I'm thinking, that was stupid. Now they know where I live. I should have told them California. But I didn't. And I said, no. And they said, how long you been living here? And I said, 3 years. And they said, how come you still live in New York? You don't have a New York driver's license. And I said, well, to get a new driver's license, you have to go get an extra ID, and I don't have a social security card, and I have to go
all the way down there. He says, you're lazy, that's why. Just say you're lazy. They just give you a hard time. So I said, yeah, right, fine. Yeah, I'm lazy. So I had to wait for them to run a check and all this stuff. And they wrote down, a little ticket thing, and got all the information. They checked through all my stuff. What are you doing out here? The reason they pulled me over was 2 things. I don't know if I told this story before, but I was walking, and I was and the cop was there. And you're always paranoid when there's a cop, right? Because there's if there's a cop right next to you, you don't want to act like you're bothered by it. You don't want to look in and say, hi. So you're kind of feeling a little insecure about it, right? So I'm walking and they're driving slowly, right? So I'm thinking, are they following me? And so I kind of look over at them and I try not to make any eye contact. And then there's a one-way street. So I said, this is annoying. So I walked down the one-way street. And because thinking that, they're not going to go down a one-way street. But of course I'm wrong. Of course the cops can go to anywhere they want. So they pulled down a one-way street. And when they said, you know why we pulled you over? I mean, they did it several times, but they asked me each time. And at this time they said, no, I don't know why you pulled me over. I could have said because I'm black. I should have said that. But they said, because you tried to avoid us. You went down that one-way street to try to avoid us. And so that's what they would write on the thing. They have to have like a reason. The second time they said I was in an area where their cars had been stolen. I said, whatever. I don't know, maybe I look suspicious when I'm out hunting. When I'm out walking around. So,
Yeah, I like the way how they stop somebody, so it looks suspicious. So they stop him.
Yeah, I don't know, what are you supposed to do? Are you
Supposed to make eye contact with him and then say hi? What are you supposed to do?
You feel awkward then. Then it's even weirder. My point was, what I was about to say was that if you were living in the neighborhood and you were like a black guy or a Hispanic guy or whatever, and you got stopped like every other day or every third or fourth day, I could see that where that would be different and that would be annoying. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of take it in context. But I've been stopped a lot of places. I was stopped in Sacramento and San Francisco. I was stopped several times in Bangkok, and I mean, I get stopped everywhere. It's just maybe I just look suspicious.
This thing about profiling, racial profiling. Do you think that's a good idea, profiling?
It's a very political issue right now.
I don't understand racial profiling. Whenever we put in something, people ask us, they will ask you.
I'm going to interject something here. It's not so evident in this recording. The student says that he doesn't know about profiling, but when he fills out something, even for school, they will ask about your race. He thinks this is profiling. And in our class conversation, he thinks it's to keep people out. He doesn't understand or believe my explanation that it has to do with data.
Oh, they always ask you what your race is. Yeah, I think that's for data stuff because I think the government wants to make sure that you're not just, because there is affirmative action and stuff like that. I don't know if it has to do with affirmative action, that specific question, but they do keep track of what ethnicities are going where. And it may not be for a bad thing, it may be a good thing. Like affirmative action, they want to make sure that, a good number of mixture of people are applying to the schools. I mean, generally speaking. So it may be for that reason. Also, to get a job, they ask you also. So they may be monitored or by somebody to make sure that they're not just getting applications from certain people. I think it's just data. You know what I mean? It's how they could look at the data.
So what is the difference with profiling?
No, well, this is when they're out there on the street. The police officers are looking at you and trying to figure out, based on the way you dress and the way you walk, what kind of a person you are. You know what I mean? And that's called profiling. You understand what that is? You think we'll talk about it for a moment. Do you think that's good or bad? It's bad?
You shouldn't do it.
You shouldn't profile?
They shouldn't do stop and frisk.
Oh, stop and frisk. Okay, so you think it's going a little bit too far. What about profiling, though? I think it might be tricky for the police and politicians, but like if you guys are out on the street, do you profile people that you look at? I think you do. I think everybody has to profile. Animals do it. Animals look at other animals. My cockroaches in my apartment look at me and decide whether I'm going to go over and smash them or if I'm going to let them go. They're very smart cockroaches here in New York. The frogs, like I mentioned this before, I think, maybe not, maybe it was another class, but the frogs try to look like poisonous frogs, so they'll be left alone. It happens in nature, right? The animals look for the weaker-looking gazelle or wildebeest to go after. I can get that guy. So I think profiling is part of our nature. And you guys that don't know New York City, or you don't know America. All you have is your instinct of profiling, I think, to judge what to do. You know what I mean? I think the problem with profiling is that people are wrong about their profile. So in my opinion, I don't think they should stop profiling. I think they should just get better at it. Because the problem is they're making the decision that one person is a bad person when that's not a bad person. That might be a problem, but that means they need to be better at their profiling, not they just shouldn't profile at all. Because to say don't profile any black people, or don't profile any white people, or don't profile based on only the race is probably not a good idea. But you can use that as a factor. I don't think to say don't use it as a factor would not be a good idea. And I think we all do it. You know what I mean? One of the problems, though, with the little Trayvon Martin, he saw the black kid in the wrong neighborhood. But if he looked at Trayvon Martin and his Skittles a little bit more closely, I think he'd still be alive. The stop and frisk will probably be out. I mean, almost, except Bill de Blasio, unless he gets elected, and he may be elected. So, I mean, I'm not, if he gets elected, it's definitely pushing the road. It's definitely not going to stop and frisk anymore. So, really pushing that. Finally, one more thing about Bill de Blasio. What do you guys think about that ad? Have you seen that ad? Let me show you the ad to give you guys' opinion on it. There's a few things we could talk about here. So everybody knows what's going on. Yeah, the Bill de Blasio ad. Let me find the one. Flash is warning us. You know Flash. Flash!
Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who've never experienced stop and frisk.
Okay, so he's got two ads. There's another ad. I hope I could find it. Yeah, here, maybe this is it.
I want to tell you a little bit about Bill de Blasio. He's the only Democrat with the guts to really break from the Bloomberg years. The only one who will raise taxes on the rich to fund early childhood and after-school programs. He's got the boldest plan to build affordable housing, and he's the only one who will end a stop-and-frisk era that unfairly targets people of color. Bill de Blasio will be a mayor for every New Yorker, no matter where they live or what they look like. And I'd say that even if you work like that.
What? See, that the way they do that ad, they introduce it. This is the guy zip here, and it's a black kid. It's not only a black kid. He's like got the 1970s Michael Jackson prior to surgery fro, which black people don't wear that. I don't know. And so he's got the big fro, and it's like, what's up with this kid? But it's okay. But it's obvious, right? It looks like this guy's from 1974. And then at the end, they save it to the very end to say, and then he's my dad. Just like it's a joke, a punchline. And people are like, what? And I have the same question. What's going on? Is that what? He's married, his wife is black?
His wife's his girlfriend, right?
Huh?
His wife.
Oh, his wife is white, his girlfriend's black?
His wife, right? He's not married to her.
Oh, so it is his girlfriend.
He had a kid with her.
Who?
The lady on the commercial.
Right. That's not his wife?
She has a girlfriend also. She's lesbian.
And what about and he's married? Oh, he's not married, but he just has a girlfriend who's a lesbian, who's black, that he could use for his mayoral campaign. Well, see, it sounds weird. Look, I'm from San Francisco. I don't worry about people. But the thing is, it seems to me that, he's a politician and he's got a black girlfriend and he has a black son that he's raising, and he's going to use those in his political ad. It just seems a little manipulative to me.
That helped him, right?
Yeah, it seems like, hey, I like this girl. I could use her for my campaign for mayor. If he was in love with her, it was a sincere relationship, he might be thinking in the back of his mind, this is not bad for my career either. But putting them out in front seems a little insincere. He could go. People are going to find out that he's got a black son and a black daughter. Why not keep it in the background and just, people will say, oh, well, that's interesting. So he's pretty open-minded. and they'll find out on their own. I think it's much more convincing than sticking it in everybody's face. And what's up with this fro? I would have a talk with that kid.
You have to understand something. When you work in marketing, advertisement,
Yeah.
well, you have to project, because he could be black, right? It won't reach out to the people you're looking for. He's trying to reach out to the black folks.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Yeah. But when you see the fro, you know, you can relate to the fro to one group of people.
You mean, what is it, Shaft? Michael Jackson from the 70s? But black people don't really wear, they are starting to wear it. It is becoming fashionable, but it's not quite there yet.
White also.
Yeah.
So, you know, the kid won't be as dark compared, you know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah, but I don't know if that's a very good choice. I mean, because most black people don't wear afros. It's like what a white guy who's absolutely clueless might think. It's like a really, really bad marketing team might think of that. Yeah, but it's like the world's worst market. It's like Andrew Dice Clay's marketing company might think of that. Yeah, I did get your attention, that's for sure, but I don't know if it's in a good way. So, and also his girlfriend is lesbian. Well, maybe in another ad he'll have his girlfriend walking in the park with her lesbian lover. And he could have a monkey too. The dog. Uh-huh. No, I don't know. I mean, he's got Christine Quinn. Advertising can make the difference.
Okay, that was the end of Act 2. We're coming up to Act 3. Seems like nobody likes stop and frisk, and although none of the students have ever been stopped and frisked, as foreigners in the U.S., no one likes to be stopped. The foreigners, perhaps, it's not unusual. They're in a foreign country after all, and in the U.S. we really pride ourselves by having an open, multicultural society. At least there's the statue out there outside New York, bling out there, advertising this to everybody. Anyway, here in this final act, it's the same thing, same shitty microphone, same classroom, same day, way out there in the past, but, you know, that's like I said. We talk about mosques, monitoring mosques, and it'll probably come up again. It came up then, and it's whipping back around again, even though we have a new mayor, new police chief, and all this stuff is just circling round and round. So that's one of the reasons I thought it was interesting to listen to some of this old stuff, even though it was a couple years ago. Anyway, okay, here we go to the next and final act.
Yeah, here, it's in the Metro. You read, right? Yeah, and that's it. Well, and you read, right? Okay, I'm going to have you
The
read.
recording
Underneath
is
the
an
dead polar
iPhone,
bear.
so it's difficult to understand what the student at the back of the class is reading. He's reading that the man was, and I'm quoting, accused of punching a woman in the face and stealing her phone in Brooklyn on Tuesday.
Of punching a woman in the face and stealing her phone, Brooklyn on Tuesday.
He took off running, but his low-riding jeans slowed him
He
down.
took off running, but his slow riding jeans slowed him down. He was zigzagging all over the place.
He was zigzagging all over the place.
But he couldn't run because his pants were falling down.
But he couldn't run because his pants was, although it should be were, because his pants were falling down.
Okay, so all we know is that the guy had punched the woman in the face, took her cell phone, and started running away, but he couldn't get away because his pants were too baggy, kept falling down. Now, we don't know what race this guy was or anything, but you think he was Jewish? You think this is a Jewish guy? Huh? No? Think he's Polish? No? I wonder what he could possibly be, this guy. Who knows? Because we don't have that information. We can't guess. We can only guess. And just stab in the dark. Anyway, but that's poetic justice for you there, right? So, yeah, that's a great story. Anyway, there you go. Oh, really? An iPhone? Okay. There you go. I'm floored. Did somebody catch it on video? No. That's the one that Taiwanese graphic design company needs to recreate. Give us your vocal stylings.
Report the NYPD was spying on city mosques. A new report from the AP revealed that the NYPD had designated mosques and Islamic organizations across New York City as terrorist organizations. Now Muslim community leaders are calling for Department of Justice investigation into the NYPD's intelligence operation. Linda Sarsour, whose organization, the Arab American Association of New York, was targeted by the NYPD, spoke of the NYPD's efforts to infiltrate the association's board, particularly in light of efforts she and her organization has made to work with Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. As we were inviting Commissioner Kelly and his leadership to our mosque, into our institution, he was coming through the back door, Sarsour lamented.
The article here is reporting on a problem between New York Police Commissioner Ray Kelly and the Arab American Association of New York. In the words of Executive Director Linda Sarsour, Kelly was invited to their mosques and institutions, but instead seemed to prefer going through the back door. And this was troubling to their president, Dr. Ahmad Jaber, whose name we had some difficulty pronouncing. But Jaber, however you pronounce his name, was appointed by Kelly as part of a commission of Muslim advisors to the NYPD. And since Jaber was unaware of this surveillance, he felt betrayed and, consequently, quit his position as advisor to the police. But the question to the class is whether surveillance or spying on places such as mosques is appropriate or necessary.
Jaber to a position on the Muslim Advisory Council to the NYPD. Jaber resigned on Wednesday. The NYPD did not respond to a request for comment.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a little bit more insightful than it appears to be, because the picture on the front cover has a Muslim girl and a pretty, I don't know if you call it a burqa or not, because it's yellow with red flowers, but it says and she's holding up a sign that says, "We are not anti-police, we are anti-police misconduct. We want a better NYPD," and the heading says the NYPD was spying on city mosque. And it's not so much about spying, it's about the reason this guy resigned, which is interesting. But what do you guys think about, we'll talk about both of the things. What do you guys think about the mosque thing, spying on the mosques? Well, let me ask you guys, because I don't know much about this religion stuff, but and I don't know much about the spying either, but aren't they public? They're public, right? The mosque, yeah. I mean, if I wanted to find out about this, I wanted to become a Muslim and join this mosque that was near my house, and I could just go down there, right, and say, "Hey, I'm thinking of joining your religion," and they would welcome me, right? Huh? I've had that happen before, though, by the way. I've gone to places. I've done this with Christian churches, too. I poke my head in and look at, what is this? And it's like, oh, it's a church. I'm like, oh. But the Muslim guy was like, oh, you should come in. He gave me a whole spiel about it.
Yeah, but you have to make sacrifices.
You have to make sacrifices? You mean I have to, catch virgins and split their throats and eat their tongue out or something?
No, your way of life in terms of...
Oh, right. But I could go into the church to learn about it, though, right? That's my question. Yeah, I don't have to make sacrifices to go and check it out. It's just when I join the religion, I'm going to eventually have to make changes in my life. That's what you mean, right?
But when you go there, you have to pray a certain way. If you don't know how to pray a certain way, you'll be left out.
But, okay, but you're making an assumption. I'm also making an assumption, but, okay, but if I wanted to go to the church, okay, the reason is, if I were a cop, if the cops I mean, can't they just send somebody inside to monitor? And in fact, this guy invited them. He said, "Come on in." He said, "You guys don't have to come in through the back door." I mean, it seems obvious that it's a public place. Why do they need to spy on something that's public? You know, you just go and look. It seems to me that Kelly could just say, "Hey, I'm going to stick a couple guys in there. Maybe they're Muslim." You know what I mean? And they can observe and make a report on what's going on. It doesn't have to be all secret. Why the spying? What does it say here? It says, Linda Sassour, whose organization, the Arab American Association of New York, was targeted by the NYPD, spoke of NYPD's efforts, and that was her words, to infiltrate the association's board, particularly in light of the efforts, she said, her organization has made to work with police Ray Kelly. Right. So she's saying, she's criticizing, and she goes on. She says, as we were inviting Commissioner Kelly and his leadership into our mosque, into our institutions, he was coming through the back door. So she was saying that he's infiltrating, means they're trying to get in there by secret, find out what the board is doing. But the larger conversation that they've had is about spying. So what do you think? What's your opinion about it? Yeah, what do you think? Do you think Ray Kelly's doing the wrong thing, going in there? I was just wondering why, in the larger context of things, you know, they need to spy on a public organization.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. It's New York City. You know?
So do you think that, so you're all for anything that could protect the city, right? That's what undercover is. Well, I'm thinking that's what they should do anyway. If they mean, they don't really go into specifics about what they mean by spying. Is this the only thing they're talking about, or is it a bigger thing? I get the impression it's a bigger thing, but I don't know. We don't know what's going on. But if it's just this one guy, I mean, if it's like a Mod Squad kind of guy. Remember the Mod Squad guys go out there? One of the guys had the big fro. It was like the black guy had the big fro, and he would, here, I'll show you. And he would go into he was a police officer, and he would go into like the black groups to figure out what they're doing, if they thought they were doing something weird. And the hippie girl, you know, she would go into like the hippie girl group if they thought they were smoking pot or selling drugs or something like that. Let's get there. I have to go back to the YouTube. And so it was like an undercover operation. I guess that's okay with me, but I don't know why they would have to set up like a big spying thing. That's what it implies, that it's a large spying operation on this whole group of people. You know what I mean? To me, that would be weird.
Anyone can go with it.
But maybe you could answer my question that I was asking it earlier. I mean, it's open to people going there. It's not like you don't have to get a secret password to get in or anything like that, right? You could go up to the door, and you could either sit down and observe, or you could ask somebody, "Can I sit down and observe?" And the guy will probably, like you said, say, "Well, you can't wear, we don't want you wearing like, the Hawaiian shirts and, Bermuda shorts in there, but respectfully, you could come in and observe." Yeah.
There is some rules and regulations. There's some things for things, you can avoid the hot pants.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Well, hot pants too. Yeah, I guess I should have said hot pants. You can't wear bright pink, skin tight hot pants. Yeah, of course.
You have to wash your hand, mouth, like that. It is
right.
That's why you have to just follow some rules and go inside the mosque and observe anything.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You can ask any question.
Right.
People are allowed to answer all this.
That's why it seems odd about if they were like spying on him with a big operation. But like you said, if they had a Mod Squad thing going on, I'm kind of okay with that, because they're digging in for terrorism. But if they have something where they like every day, Charlie and Ted go out there, the big conservative fat guy and the liberal guy, they never get along, but somehow they're a perfect match. But it's sitting out in the car eating, donuts or whatever they do every day, watching them and watching people coming and going and just doing the regular thing. That seems suspicious, because they could just go in and file reports and find out what's going on, So that doesn't seem right. But if it's one of these things that she's upset at, then it seems kind of okay. Yeah. Because maybe there's a like a subversive reason, something going on. It's not like they're preaching to the people. We want we want all you guys to go out and make write your rice cookers into bombs or something. Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it seems to me that they don't need to. Like it's like they're Jane Goodall, looking at the apes. I mean, they're actually, people living in the country, and it seems to me there's Muslim people on the police force that can go and just report on what's going on. It's like whatever, your job, you're Muslim, you're working here, you're a police officer. We know you're a good guy, and your partner or whatever. Why don't you go down there in the mosque and just file reports if you see something suspicious, but do it openly, It seems like so that we understand better what's going on, Yeah. It seems if anybody was doing anything like that, it would be in a back room anyway, right? Not in the mosque. Right. Here you go. This is what I'm talking about. Send one of these guys in there. They need a modern mod squad. They need a Muslim guy. And a black guy and a Spanish guy. See, Michael Cole was the turtleneck wearing sport coat white dude. I think that's Denzel Washington, right? Oh no, Clarence Williams. All right. Yeah. He's got the afro. And there's the hippie girl. Yeah, the angry captain. I think they tried to bring this back.
Okay, that's it. This has been Uncommon Core Podcast from New York City and a beach in Maui. And next episode is a trip to the museum. Subscribe to the Uncommon Core Podcast on iTunes or anywhere you can find me. Just hit that subscription button, and you could also leave feedback, which I'm not sure how to do that, but I will tell you when I find out. And if you want to just plug around and figure it out. Okay, so check our webpage, though. We have uncommoncorepodcast.com as our webpage. That's uncommoncorepodcast with the word podcast in it.com. We have hopefully we'll have a new episode every week, even though I don't know. I will try to do that. We do need some sponsors, some advertisers, some interns, and some help. So if you'd like to help, just let me know through any of these methods of communication. Again, the email for the PayPal, if you want to throw down a few bucks or something, is uncommoncorepodcast@yahoo.com. You could also follow us on Twitter at uncommoncore at UCC Podcast. That is, hello people walking by, don't look at me. Where was I? Oh, yes. Twitter, UnCommonCore at UCC Podcast. That is UnCommonCore at UCC Podcast. That's the Twitter account. There's no podcast until the end. UnCommonCore at UCC Podcast. The email I mentioned, the phone number. We have a phone number for a listener line. It is out of San Francisco. It's 415-287-4555. That is 415-287-4555. And I'm Tom Howell, if you haven't guessed it yet. Until next time, be real, stay cool, but don't stay real cool. And I will see you in episode 2.
You've been listening to the Uncommon Core podcast. with Thomas Howell. I'm Satoko Smith. Thank you for listening.